impeachment, namely that Facebook has constructed its policies to be an effective vehicle for Conservative Party lies. And when I say that, I'm talking about Mark Zuckerberg subtly changing his advertising policy so they accept money to run political ads which they won't allow to be fact-checked. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just was questioning Mark Zuckerberg now in Congress and asked if he would allow her or if he would allow anyone to run ads targeting African American communities, giving them the wrong date for elections. And he said, oh, no, there's limits. We do fact check for information that could cause people imminent physical harm, that would promote violence, or that would contain incorrect misleading information about elections or the census. So she was saying, oh, okay, so there are some limits. There are some things that they are prepared to fact check. But she asked him if she could run ads against Republicans, claiming that Republicans are voting for the Green New Deal. And he said he couldn't answer that question over whether or not that ad would be allowed to run. But presumably that's his prepared response for any hypotheticals, because they are not fact-checking political ads. So Facebook is a hotbed for disseminating conservative lies at present. And Trump is ploughing money into Facebook. The good news is they're spending so much money, the Trump campaign on Facebook, and the people, well, they're trying to motivate unengaged members of the public to vote. So they're trying to activate low information people by telling them you're in imminent danger, Democrats will kill your children, will allow migrants to come in that will kill your family. You know, the most out there things that they can say, they will say, because their goal is to enable Trump's corruption to remain in power, to get people to overlook the harm that Trump is doing to the economy, to America's ability to have allies and to sustain strong alliances, to sustain the order of NATO that has allowed for there to be relative stability and prosperity in the Western world for so long. Trump will overturn all of that because it will help Putin. And if it helps Putin, it helps Trump because Trump is beholden to Putin, who has helped him. It's not a conspiracy or a hoax that Trump received Russian help. He was able to sufficiently obstruct justice so that his son was not charged, so that he himself was not charged, because of a memo saying that sitting presidents shouldn't be indicted, and Mueller considered that to be binding on his activities as a special prosecutor. So no, there's been no debunking of Russian involvement, rather extensive confirmation in that Trump's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, was outed for having passed on very, very valuable, very significant electoral information. The GOP internal polling data about voters in battleground states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, to a former KGB agent, Konstantin Kilimnik, in a Trump-owned building. Was it Trump-owned? Well, in the Havana Club, which is a cigar bar. Yes, I believe it's owned by Trump or Jared Kushner, one of the two. And Paul Manafort got Trump's campaign's deputy, Rick Gates, to print out some of this information, to give it to Konstantin Kilimnik on a regular basis. So they definitely cooperated together on campaign strategies for Donald Trump. And Roger Stone's trial is coming up soon, so there will be more evidence made public then about the degree to which Roger Stone knowingly cooperated with Russian hackers and with WikiLeaks to take the Russian hacked information and facilitate its effective distribution by WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks pretending to be a nonpartisan journalistic publication, just publishing information, whereas we've already seen, or if you've been paying attention at that particular moment in time, that there were messages exchanged between Donald Trump Jr. and whoever was running the WikiLeaks account on Twitter or WhatsApp to say, can you please give us one of your dad's tax returns so that we can have the appearance of non-bias, so we can publish something to your dad. You know, pick whatever tax return you like, you know, that reflects the least poorly on your father and give it to us. I guess the trouble was Trump Jr. couldn't supply him with any tax return information, any financial records from Trump that didn't reveal that he vastly misrepresented himself as a businessman, that he was a fraud and beholden to Russian firms, that Russians backed up were guarantors for his loans from Deutsche Bank, that only one American bank gave him money, but that other sources, less salubrious sources, gave Donald Trump cash money to make cash payments for properties, that Trump's business model is effectively leasing his name to appear on buildings that other people have built and operate, and that he is a fraud and a sham, and that his multiple bankruptcies were not an aberration, but they were a consequence of his poor business skill, and the fact that his business model is predicated on his ability to project a snake oil salesman pitch to gullible purchasers and investors. Trump has long gone with the trappings of wealth to persuade mom and pop investors and other gullible investors to go, right, that guy seems like he's got it all and he's achieved the American dream. He's faced down bankruptcy and returned triumphant. The truth is, he's faced down bankruptcy and re-upped his business model to include even more criminality, because you can make money when you're prepared to not abide by the same set of rules that other businesses are constrained by. When you're prepared to not pay taxes and you're prepared to have two sets of books, one where you overinflate your assets in order to gain more money from lenders, and the other where you deflate your assets for tax purposes. So Trump had two sets of books. That's been revealed recently by ProPublica, a journalist organization that found Trump's financial records through the fact that he had appealed his taxes for a number of consecutive years. And when you appeal your taxes, you have to submit some of your financial records. So that was, ProPublica were able to find that. And we should be making more noise about it, because Trump's financial records really are a giveaway for the fact that he is entirely a charlatan, and that he has repurposed American foreign and domestic policy to advance his own interests and to advance the interests of his secret allies, Vladimir Putin and the Saudi Arabian royalty. He tries to come out more in public about it to sort of grease the public up with some of the truth. When Mick Mulvaney made the admission that yes, a quid pro quo happened, he didn't use those terms, but a journalist said to him, what you've just described is a quid pro quo. And Mick Mulvaney said, this type of thing happens all the time, get over it. Mick Mulvaney had just described that congressionally approved aid, military aid to Ukraine, that was and continues to be under attack by Russia, from Russia, that the aid was held up because of corruption when Trump had spoken about the need for investigations into the hacking of the DNC server, namely his politically convenient narrative that he makes up and that Russians make up, that Russia didn't hack the DNC servers, that it was nothing to do with Russia, that all of the evidence put forward by Robert Mueller about the involvement of Russia, all of the assertions made by American intelligence agencies, by the thousands of people who work and research for American intelligence agencies, that Russia was involved in the hacking, that Russian hackers did this, to just say it was Ukraine, because Ukraine wanted to get somebody else elected and was spectacularly unsuccessful. Well, Russia was successful, Russia did the hacking, and Trump is now invested in undermining the truth about that Russian involvement so that he can do Putin his next favor on the to-do list and revoke the sanctions that Congress has passed against Russia to punish Russia not only for its illegal annexation of various Crimean territories, but to punish Russia for its ongoing attack of American elections. Hacking of electoral roll systems in a variety of states, successful hacking of electoral roll systems. The only thing that hasn't been confirmed yet is that Russians changed information on the rolls. So that would have prevented people from voting if you just if you develop an algorithm to detect African American sounding names and change a digit in their electoral roll registered address so that when they turn up with their driver's license showing their address, corrupt officials can look at that and say, well, there's a discrepancy between your address on your ID and the address in the system, so you can't vote or you have to fill in a provisional vote. And then more corrupt officials just lose all the provisional votes and wham bang, you have a Republican elected into office. So I think the reason why so many Republicans are prepared to act so badly in support of Trump, and I'm talking now about the how many is it, 46 congressional House Republicans who today pushed their way into a secure area meant for an impeachment inquiry and wouldn't leave for hours. There was a standoff for hours, and just wanted to be there giving press conferences to Fox News to advance their false narrative that the impeachment inquiries are in some way an aberration, whereas it's perfectly standard procedure for impeachment inquiries to begin with private held hearings and then progress to public hearings. The private hearings are so that witnesses can't collude on their testimony and have to give independent answers to the best of their ability. That's important. It's so important to state the obvious. My high school teachers always used to tell me this and tell my classmates this. They said we were often guilty of trying too hard to sound fancy, and we would neglect to state the most important points in our essays to show off our fundamental understanding of the issues at hand. And this is the case with media. We need people prepared to go over the most basic facts, because all of these facts are under assault from a concerted and purposeful disinformation campaign, instigated by Russia, but in another way instigated by Republicans who have been deceiving the American public for years in order to better lobby for corporations and drunk with power billionaires who have wanted and striven successfully to repurpose American democracy to facilitate their own financial gain, and rather than to serve the public interest. And the more they get away with that, the worse it is for the economy, because it allows them to be like a giant killing the goose that lays the golden egg. They can squeeze wages so much and restore feudalism to America, a type of feudalism with a monarchy where King Donald can do anything he likes and not be removed from office, that checks and oversights can be obstructed with no consequence. And they would prefer that because they fear that democracy works to protect the rights of working people. And I didn't know that I had to be an advocate for the rights of working people until I realized the degree to which working people's rights are being rolled back. That union power is being suppressed when union power has achieved reasonable working hours and reasonable working conditions for people, not only in America but around the world, but that in America particularly they're threatened, and so many people are placed in a very difficult position of having to stay with their employment, because that's how they derive medical insurance and consequently medical treatment. That Americans are effectively enslaved to their employers because of the risks of perhaps not finding a new job if you leave your current position. And that system invites massive inefficiencies into the delivery of healthcare because of two competing clients for private insurance companies. So they have the clients whose healthcare they're supposed to be organizing, but those clients have another competing client to deal with, which is that healthcare companies will make more money for their shareholders if they do a better job of underserving the healthcare clients, if they do a better job of withholding healthcare services and denying healthcare claims from people who legitimately need assistance through their health insurance companies. So how awful to be sick and have to marshal all your energies into fighting not only your sickness, but your insurance company, because your insurance company is trying to maximize its profits at your expense. How frustrating, how inefficient, what a scam being perpetrated on the American people. So that's all from me for today. If you enjoyed listening, please consider subscribing. Please consider visiting my website, which is davcat43.com. And your visits will encourage and inspire me to write a second blog post. I've written one, which you can obtain by clicking blog post on the top right-hand corner. Thank you in advance for any support or encouragement. Liking this post or commenting on this post does help YouTube use that to feed it into their algorithms to then promote me more to viewers who aren't acquainted with me and my commitment to telling Americans from an outsider's point of view what I can see happening not only to their politics but to their healthcare system and to their working conditions. Thank you so much. Bye.